Velina me ke aloha iau ko pakahia po o vau o anela he haumana maka Papa PUBA 351, and this is my oral presentation. So greetings to each and every one of you. My name is Anela Benson, and this is my oral presentation for Public Administration 351. Today's topic pertains to the systemic integration of Hawaiian culture and values into an organization. This is something that I am extremely passionate about. As you can see by my background, I am actually a cultural specialist currently at a hotel, and my goal is to create my own kupuna care center or an elderly care home here in Lahaina to expedite bringing back our kupuna or our elders to our community in the wake of the fire. I wanted to use our cultural practices and values as the kahua, the foundation of our organization, because there are many benefits that we have pertaining to our cultural values. And it all stems from this olelo no eau, or Hawaiian proverb that states "Iola oi, iola kako nei," which means if you thrive, we all thrive. Our philosophy as Kanaka or as Hawaiians is that if one life is dependent upon another, essentially we can all thrive if the other one thrives. And we always think of a kako mentality, or essentially an inclusive mentality. And so those are a part of the benefits that I was referencing earlier in terms of Hawaiian cultural integration into our organization. And so one of those benefits is that it creates a healthy work environment based off of ho'ihi, or respect. One of the main things that we focus on as Kanaka or humans is, one, to honor our ancestors, and two, to become honorable ancestors. And in order to do so, we always focus on the concept of ho'ihi, or respect, not only for one another, but for everything around us. And that's because we treat them with the same reverence as our kupuna, our elders. So how apropos to utilize our cultural practices and traditions as the kahua foundation for a kupuna care center, being that we will be caring for the elderly. And this healthy work environment can translate into many benefits systemically throughout our organization. One, it creates inclusivity, in which all stakeholders are deemed significant. And so everybody has a place and they have a purpose in our organization, whether or not they are the admin, our CNAs or staff, and even the kupuna themselves, because of course they are the primary reasons why we are there. But in order for us to function properly, it takes a whole, essentially a village, to ensure the success of this huaka'i venture that we're going on. And so inclusivity is an essential role to ensure that we are successful. So again, if you succeed, we all succeed. Iola oi, iola kako nei. Our third point that I wanted to address is that it increases productivity and retention rates. By having a healthy working environment built upon ho'ihi, or respect, we tend to collaborate more with our colleagues. We tend to have stronger pilina, or relationships, and a happier disposition amongst all of our staff will make a happier work environment. Thus, it's easier to be productive while we are collaborating and working together. And with that, with a healthy environment, it increases the retention rates. Now, I remember recently reading in one of the chapters of our textbook that it takes about $21,000 for a company to invest per person for onboarding expenses. And so if you have a high turnover rate, that could translate into a higher budget that you would have to operate with annually. So the goal is to retain everyone, and to also not ensure that the organization is successful, but to ensure that the welfare of our constituents, especially the staff, being that they are the heartbeat of the organization, are well taken care of. Because if they're well taken care of, then they can take care of our kupuna better. And speaking of which, it emphasizes holistic healing of all stakeholders. And so, one thing that I love about our culture is that we always focus on not just the physical health, but the emotional, mental, or spiritual health of our people as well. And as I was stating earlier, if we take care of our staff members, then they can take care of our kupuna, our elders, better. And so, to ensure that they take care of themselves, I want to ensure that they spend more quality time for themselves with their families. And so a work-life balance is also important, which I'll be addressing next. And, we'll have mental health workshops for the staff. We'll also have support groups for them, because taking care of kupuna or elders can be very taxing or draining, not just physically in terms of their well-being, but also physically and mentally. And not only do we want to provide this for our staff, but we also want to provide it for their families, because of course their families are taking care of them before they enter our facility. And so we want to ensure that we focus on their health, because again, the more we can support all of the stakeholders, the more we can support our kupuna the way that they deserve. And so earlier I mentioned the work-life, family, and personal time balance. So to achieve this, I want to ensure that all of our staff members work on a 10-hour shift, weekly schedule. That way it enables them 3 days off every week. Of course, they need 1 day to address their personal errands. They need a day with family and friends, and they also need a day for themselves to ho'omaha or to relax. And so I think that the scheduling is important because it would enable them to prioritize their own personal needs and the needs of their families, because their families and their personal needs are just as significant as their career needs. And speaking of their career needs, I also wanted to focus on professional and personal growth. Again, we are only as successful as our staff members. And so the key thing that I wanted to emphasize here is that by focusing on their personal growth, it can help them to develop professionally. And as they progress along their path professionally, they also become more valuable to our organization. So by focusing on the welfare of our staff, as well as helping them to attain their personal and professional goals, essentially we help the overarching mission and values or vision of the organization to be accomplished. So these are the primary things that I wanted to address, which is the beauty of having an emphasis on our culture. And so my main point as I start off my organization is to focus on professional development workshops in which we can really hone in on creating a strong pilina or relationship amongst all of our staff members, built upon the foundation of ho'ihi and respect. And by sharing these cultural values with them through different activities where they would have to interact, it will enable them to form those strong pilina or bonds, which will enable us to operate more like an ohana or a family. And by having a family environment, it'll make it a lot more comfortable for all of our kupuna who are residents of the facility, because we really want to create an environment where they feel like they're at home. And speaking of which, when it comes to ho'ihi or respect, I want everybody to address each other as family members. So if they're a female, they would be like our sister. If they're a male, they would be like our brother. Of course, if they are a generation above us, usually in our culture, we address them as auntie or uncle to show signs of respect. And if they are 2 generations above us, then we would address them like we would our own kupuna, our own grandparents. And so that's the kind of kahura, the foundation that I want to establish. And so with that being said, mahalo nui for joining me on this huaka'i journey into my future prospects or venture in creating a kupuna center for Lahaina. So on that note, ila meka'i au ko pakahiapo, which means have a great day to each and every one of you. Mahalo.